So titles evolved. They became hereditary. A count during the Merovingian dynasty was a royal legal representative, and it was a one-off affair at first. Eventually, the title was passed on from father to son, except when there was no son, the dynasty died. A duke was the king's military representative, and the same sequence applied. Gifts of titles and land from the monarch consolidated the monarch's power, tightened those relationships. Clovis I, often recognized as the first legitimate king of the Franks in the 6th century. Following him, Charles the Hammer Martel extended this sovereignty in the 8th century. And the Carolingian dynasty, launched with Charles, named from Carolus, C-A-R-L-U-S, the Latinized form of Charles. Martel's grandson was Charlemagne, the one who could read but not write. The title Marquis is from the 14th century, Old French Marchis, M-A-R-C-H-I-S, or ruler at the frontier, a ruler at a border or buffer zone. A marque, M-A-R-C-H, was a buffer zone. In France, it was ruled by a marquis, masculine, or marquesa, feminine. There were correlates in Britain, the marquis and the marchioness. In Germany, the margrave and the margravine. The fief, F-I-E-F, more commonly in France, the seigneurie of Lafayette, was made a marquisate in 1690 by letters patent. And this was simply an order to do so by King Louis XIV, the Sun King, the longest reigning monarch in history, you recall, 72 years, 110 days. Marquis from that point on was hereditary title. So the ancient senior branch of Lafayette would evaporate in 1706. Lafayette, you recall, was born in 1757, to give perspective. Louis XIV, the Sun King, was nearing the end of his reign, and the last sole surviving representative of the Lafayette branch was Marie Madeleine Motier de Lafayette. She lived from 1691 to 1717, died at the age of 25. She closed out this illustrious line. Her grandmother was Marie Madeleine Piochet de Laverne, the Comtesse de Lafayette, better known simply as Madame de Lafayette. She married Francois Motier, the Comte de Lafayette, on February 16, 1655, and she would travel with her husband to the Auvergne, where he owned lands such as Lafayette's, among others. She began writing novels. The most famous, though not the first, was published March 1678 anonymously, entitled La Princesse de Cleves, or The Princess of Cleves. The story was about a young girl, 16. Her mother sends her to the royal court to find a husband. That's what they did then. The court of Henry II in the story, but thought to be based on the court of Louis XIV. It was scandalous in that way. Our heroine marries money and title, but falls in love with someone else. The husband finds out, but then her paramour is unfaithful. Very dicey. Enormous commercial success at the time. And it was a turning point for novel writing. This was historical fiction, a psychological thriller. This was the first modern novel in France. It was the earliest of its kind. It set precedents. And apparently the French civil service exam had questions about that novel in it. French President Nicolas Sarkozy thought this was arcane, and he criticized such questions in 2006, in his run-up to the presidency in 2007, which then prompted public readings of the book in 2009 and a spike in sales. I do not know if the president ever read the book. Madame de Lafayette's sister-in-law was Louise Lafayette's. Her grandmother, distant related to Louis XIII, arranged for her to be a maid of honor at court, specifically to the king's wife, Anne of Austria. Incidentally, Peter Paul Rumen's portrait of Anne, 1622, is spectacular. This story is full of intrigue with Louise de Lafayette. Louis XIII was taken with one Marie de Hautefort. He made her a maid of honor to his wife, the Queen. The terminology gets intricate here. A lady-in-waiting is like a personal secretary. A maid of honor is help of a lesser kind, but they become confidants. There are usually 8 maids of honor and 1 lady-in-waiting. Marie Hautefort became a confidant to both Louis and his wife, Anne. She was not a mistress. Louis was pious to the point of prudishness on this account. In fact, when he was talking with Marie Hautefort, he would be certain to sit far enough away that he could not touch her, even unintentionally. Cardinal Richelieu didn't like the influence Marie had on the king. So in 1635, he had her replaced with none other than Louise de Lafayette. Louise gained the confidence of the king and his wife, Queen Anne. Both confided in her, and Louis confided in her that he resented Cardinal Richelieu. Well, instead of reporting those confidences to Richelieu, as Richelieu expected her to do, Louise encouraged King Louis to rein in this overbearing cardinal.